Oh, no, we'll move this forward. We're already late. Let's see. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Let's see. There you go. 30 seconds for y'all. Now to the part where the guest freestyles. Go. I'm just kidding.
Are we rapping or is it a freestyle interpretive dance?
Whatever you like. Unfortunately, it cuts off really quick. I really need to make that music longer, but I had other things to do.
The music is gone. That's going to make the dance really fucking awkward, but I'll still do it.
Yeah. A nice silent. Oh my. Wait, I know this dance from somewhere. Is this Napoleon Dynamite? There's some pieces in there. That's what's going on. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of HOSTility. I'm Jimmy Snow, and this is the show where I and other hosts on the line, though so far I have been very selfish and just hogged it for myself, feature just somebody out there we like that we think you should be exposed to, somebody you should know, somebody who impresses us, somebody we like. And this is a person who I feel like tonight is going to find out I have been a tremendous admirer of for a long time, and he didn't know how obsessed I've been with him for years, because it's actually going to be a revelation to him, probably, I think, as I tell him right now. I invoke this guy's name all the time in conversations. I talk about Jesse as the opposite of toxic masculinity pretty much every time the thing comes up. The topic comes up being the thing. The thing coming up could be interpreted other ways. This is a family show. No, it's fucking not. But everybody, I'd like you to meet my friend, who I'm obsessed with, one Jesse Jerdak. Why is my font bigger than your font? Let me fix this.
Look, there's no need to try and take me down a peg with the larger, bolder font. I mean, it's fine.
There we go.
I didn't know you liked me that much. I thought we were fond acquaintances.
Yeah. This is the thing that I was thinking about before the show, where I was like, what should I, this is working. Look at this.
Hi, John.
This works. These are great name tags right now.
The size proportion is nearly accurate at this junction.
There was a time when you first started, well, you and I have known each other for a few years, but we've only interacted a handful of times. But I've followed your modeling, your acting career and stuff as somewhat of a fan, totally anonymously for a long time. And then at one point, a few months ago, you started reaching out and being like, yo, what you're doing on the line, I fucking love it. And I was just like, I don't think I'm going to tell him how much I like him. And then I realized one day I should have this guy on. I talk about him every time we talk about I love when people bring up to be a real man, be a real man. And I'm like, the manliest person I fucking know in the whole world is not a toxic piece of shit. And he's so cool that he took his wife's name. That's the coolest, most baller shit in the world to me. And so I thought I'd make it awkward tonight to tell you, while you've been very kind and so gracious in talking about what you've liked about the line and getting, I was like, I'm going to wait to make him feel awkward on screen to tell him I invoke your name for the last couple years in private conversations with people twice a month. It's that bad. Yeah. That's
a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I hope I don't let you down. My God, no pressure or anything.
And from now I'm going to be quiet for the rest of the episode. You take all the calls. Let's see how this goes. No,
that's fine. I will encourage them, and I will be apparently an icon of wholesome masculinity. No fucking pressure, Jimmy. Thanks, bud.
I earlier, can I tell everybody what you said in text when I was like, hey, by the way, what would you like in the links in the description? Can I tell you tell everyone what your goal was?
Yeah, of course. I'm an open book. I am not famous. I got cookies.
Jesse said, well, you look like fucking Superman. Everybody who's watching right now is like, is this that Clark Kent guy? Is that Is that who this is? And he should be. Okay, the next one, there's an opening now. I think we're all sad about that because I liked the last guy, but
Cavill.
If I can suggest a replacement, Jesus Christ. And by the way, y'all should be checking out his social medias because you can see what this guy looks like as Superman. Insane. My God. Anyway, I was asking about the links and he goes, I'm really trying to be the beefy Mr. Rogers of the geek circles. And I was like, dude, you already are. What are you talking? Of course. Oh my God. Except for that, I have yet to see. I do want to see you sort of bursting out of a Mr. Rogers open sweater thing. You know what I'm talking about? His like sweater jackets. I'm just saying there's some work to do to that end. Take the suggestions as you like. I'm full of ideas.
I'm always listening to suggestions for a potential like OnlyFans, and if it's just me just destroying sweater vests and shit,
fuck yeah.
We live in a capitalist hellhole, and I'll do anything for money.
Yeah, well, that's yeah. This is funny because you know who Forrest and I are the two like most socialist on the channel, and yet we're always like, all right, let's do this next thing so we can fund this and pay for this and do like we're like, yes, we hate living in this capitalist hellhole, but until we don't, we're gonna play the goddamn game. You better fucking believe it.
Well, and it's how you play it, right? Like you're not playing it just to like line your pockets or get over on people. It's to do cooler, better, more beautiful things in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, literally the only thing I buy for myself out of the money we make, the only thing disposable income ever goes to is like wood stuff. I buy wood and things to cut those woods with. Are you
really making sex things with wood?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
A series of paddles will be available to the public soon that have the quote on it, spare the paddle, spoil the sub, laser engraved on it. High-end hardwood paddle. Yeah. That's a thing I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Jesse, please tell people about you, what you do, what they will find when they go and check out your YouTube channel, and all of that. And then let's start just complaining about transphobes and incels and that. But first, tell them more about you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm what you call a Swiss Army nerd. I'm into a lot of dumb things that don't benefit the planet that much, but I'm super into them because I think it's like I was diagnosed with ADHD not too long ago, and we do this thing where we hyper focus on like something. And so I've gotten really good at like a lot of unrelated, just nerdy things. Jimmy and I met when I was doing a lot of cosplay. So he was referring to me dressed as Superman. I'm pretty good Superman. Pretty good.
Yeah. No, incredible.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Incredible. Yeah.
I like to make things out of leather. I like to do leather work. I do 3D modeling. If you go to my social media, you're going to see a lot of stuff about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm sorry already, because you're going to be like, this guy really talks about Dungeons and Dragons a lot, and it's because I think it's fun.
Yeah.
For no other reason. And like social activism. Like it's like 50-50, like shitting on transphobes and then rolling little dice and painting little orcs.
Yeah.
What else am I? I did acting. I tried to be a famous actor. Somebody in chat said, "Is Jesse famous?" No, but he tried real hard. I was in movies and TV series, but it never really went anywhere. Sure. Because you have to basically be an LA person to make that really pop off.
Yeah. Yeah. We're sort of like, it's funny. Anybody who's like, man, I want to be famous. And I'm like, I have a little bit, I have a tiny bit of fame. It's awful. Run away. Don't do it. But it's just not, it doesn't fit me. It doesn't fit what I do. Again, this is not me saying I'm famous. I would laugh at anyone who calls me famous, but I got a tiny bit of fame and I feel I don't want much more. If the channel absolutely exploded tomorrow and we suddenly had 1 million subscribers and we had an average of 5,000 people watching every show live, you'd probably never see me on it again. I'd only platform the other hosts. It would be that forever.
But that's not a goal, folks. We're not good.
No, do it. Do it, please.
I don't like that. I like your cynicism and your snark, especially like Jimmy behind the camera. So funny.
Yes. I like that you added Jimmy behind a camera because you are one of the people who uniquely knows the other side of that, which is, I feel if you're being honest, you would say Jimmy in person, pretty weird, quiet, and odd. But that's only if you were to be honest. You're too nice to be that honest, I feel.
I would never be that honest with you. You'll never know.
Yeah.
You'll never know.
Yeah, but I think I know. I was thinking about that a lot before the show, where it's like there are very few people who have actually seen me out in social and in person and see the contrast, because I seem like a well-adjusted, charismatic person, but it's all an illusion that I learned in Mormon church. And we've talked about this a bunch. And now I'm trying to bring up the topic as though it's happening organically. This is a tool you do when you say, like, they do it on talk shows. Like, all right, what story do you want to tell and stuff? Okay, well, I'm going to pretend that this organically came up. Anyway, so very organically, I'm going to bring up this concept of the only thing of value, if you are being raised in the Mormon church as a man, is to be a charismatic man. You need to be able to convert other people. You need to be able to charm other people. You need to be the light on the hill that everybody looks at and goes like, my God, that's an example of what's so lovely and what we want to see about it. Like that's all. And so as a skill to survive, because I had a very high pressure father, that basically your worth is measured in both how good of a Mormon are you, but actually more important, how good of a Mormon do you appear to be, was my dad's much bigger thing. Hypocrisy, cognitive dissonance, all of that sort of shit. And so I learned as a skill to be able to perform very charismatically from Mormonism, ironically, which now I took the skill that they pressured me to get, and I try to take people out of that church. And I'm doing much better at that than I was at getting people into the church before. What about you? He organically suggested with no prior preparation. What about you as far as, because you're a very charismatic, as a character and as a person, I feel everybody feels drawn to you. There's a magnetism to you. Anything similar? You want an organic suggestion that you take the conversation from there, Jesse?
Yeah, no, that magnetism you're feeling is literally just gravity. I'm enormous. Jimmy, I don't think sold that.
Not yet.
Like Jimmy's a tall person. What are you, like 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah, and you see over my head. Correct, I'm 6'2".
Yeah, I can rest my chin on top of your head. I'm a huge person, so it's just literal, actual physics at play. There's no charisma here. I very much in the same way. I wasn't Mormon. I was raised in like the Pentecostal Church of God, Assemblies of God. You're going to get sued by those people now. Welcome to hell.
Good. Bring it.
Circles. And so the only aspirational position in that organization was to be the most charming, charismatic. Everybody was trying to be a vocalist. Everybody was trying to be a youth pastor until they're like 50, and then they want to be a senior pastor. I don't know if it's like that in Mormon churches or not, but like that is the trajectory for the most charismatic of us. And I wasn't inherently charismatic. I'm on the spectrum. For me, it was a learned behavior. Yeah. And so everything that people really love about me is like an aspect of like a character that I thought was really cool. Like, there's a little bit of Alan Alda from MASH in there. There's a little bit of Ryan Reynolds. There's a little bit of my best friend growing up who was just a naturally cool person. Yeah.
That's hard too, because I can recognize that there are things about my personality that I've adjusted as I've recognized, like I went through a lot of edginess and some MGTOW type feelings, especially in the first half of my 20s. Then there was it's funny now where I look back, like if I watch an old episode of Family Guy, I'm like, oh, this wouldn't have been cool now. This would have been cool. And yet Family Guy like formed my sense of humor initially. It's changed and morphed since then, but that's where a lot of it came from, and certain types of even cynicism and expectations of society to not be very great comes from a place that now I look back on and I'm like, I'm glad I continued to evolve after I absorbed all of that. And I can't let it go completely, because what would I do with this perfect Stewie Griffin impression? Like, what would I do with that if I completely let go of Stewie? Thank you. But it's a whole fucking wild thing.
I'm so glad that your whole personality isn't just Family Guy, though, because I know that guy. And that guy fucking sucks to hang out with. Yeah, no,
I can also quote Futurama, Malcolm in the Middle. There's like, my personality's at least 5 other shows. It's not just Family Guy.
I mean, wifey and I are always spouting Futurama references. That's like a love language for us. So
yeah.
I think you're cooler than when this call started as of right now.
Do you know my old, do you remember my old roommate Joel, without giving away his last name or anything, making it weird? Did you ever meet Joel?
Nah.
I think you probably did, but just saying Joel might not tell you much. But Joel and I, it was the funniest thing because people always thought we were a couple because we'd pretty much go everywhere and in front of other people. We had like 1,000 inside jokes and like 90% of them were Futurama quotes.
That's amazing.
Like
I love that show.
If somebody ever like let hang the phrase, like, unless of course, not even let hang, just before they could finish that sentence, he or I would go, "War were declared." That's the sort of, do you not remember that? That's one of our favorites. Do you remember that? War, unless of course, war were declared. And then the alarm goes off. What's that alarm? War were declared. Anyway, it's
such a good one.
This ham gum is all bones. I don't know what tonight's show we should prompt. There are some people like queuing up on the line. You're going to get to meet one person that's almost like a rite of passage to talk to when you're on this channel. Emanuel is waiting to talk about the feminization of men.
Talk to Emanuel.
Yeah, I hope it's surreal. The fact that you know who Emanuel is, that's tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
But wants to talk about the topic that society is quote unquote feminizing men, which is, I'm very much forward to that. We got other lines that are queuing up. Look, here's the deal. I don't really care what people want to call in and talk about. The idea tonight is like, this is a person I really like. This is a person who, when I think about the kind of man I would want to be, it's much more Jesse than Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is an Andrew Taint. That's not a very good joke. That's not a good line, but it seemed to make sense in my head and flow, and I'm just embarrassing myself because I'm a little flustered right now.
Don't be flustered. You look great. You look like celebrated atheist, big brain, Matt Dillahunty.
Do you know what people keep mentioning? By the way, much younger Dillahunty, but do you know what people keep mentioning? Do you know what people keep mentioning? I've seen a couple of times in the live chat at least pop up is your jawline. And of course you have an incredible chiseled jawline. I'm so insecure about mine. That's the worst part of shaving. Y'all, now when I turn to the side, you can see I'm not lying. It just goes neck cheek. When does the neck?
It's not that fucking bad.
When does well, I have all of my lights up high to force a shadow line. Let me just do that. It's just like, when does the neck end and the cheekbone begin? You should see it. If I shave this off, it just looks like my mouth is in the middle of my throat.
I feel like the goatee is doing you a disservice because it does force like an artificial line right from like your Adam's apple to your eyebrow. But without that, you would have that beautiful.
Isn't it wild?
I don't know what you're.
I am incestuously Western European.
Okay.
Yeah, like if you go to my 23andMe, it literally says 99.9% Western European, and that's basically it's 88% British and 12% Irish, and then I have a 0.1%. I think it's 16 generations back. Somebody married a Jew, and I'm very proud of that Jew. That's the person I hold the most to and identify with, because holy shit, what is the rest of my DNA doing? Why can I even tolerate hot sauce? I am an Aryan's wet dream. They wish they had my 23andMe. And the family tree clearly does this every now and then. It reconverges. I would never date in England because if I did, there's like a 70% chance they're within, second cousins to me. It's wild.
I'm from the South, and that's hot to me. So whatever.
You're like, yeah. I've lived in the South for much of my life. I don't know where I'm from. Where would you say you're from? Do you want to share that? You don't have to. Yeah.
No, I don't give a shit. Are we talking about like genetic background, or are we talking about like my cultural upbringing?
I would say no. Yeah, more like a person who is born and raised and goes to high school or like elementary school through high school in Alabama usually says like, I'm from Alabama. That sort of answer.
In that case, I'm a Colorado kid through and through. I mean, my family is largely Southern, but they moved here, long ago. So I don't really know much of Southern culture except for when we visit.
Yeah.
I'm a pretender to the South.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a pretender to New York, because New York is where my family's from. Of my accents, I have a New York accent, but it's not the one that I'm usually defaulted to.
No, let's hear it though, unless you don't want to.
I have to. It comes out naturally when I'm talking to my family, basically. Like when it's from, and things are getting heated with my dad. I'm like, no, what are you taking, stupid pills? Like that sort of thing. It comes out. It's sort of and then I went to elementary school with a British accent because my mother is British, and so I only had been exposed to her and my brothers who had these slightly tweaked accents until then. But I've lived in New York, but not very much. Like it was spread out. My family never liked me, so I kept getting sent to go live with New York cousins and grandparents and stuff during like summers. And then we lived there for a while, but I've also lived in Florida and Louisiana. And then I went to like most of high school in Wyoming, but a little bit in Louisiana. And then I moved to Colorado after college. And I feel the most shaped by Denver. So I feel like most of my development, my independence, my individualism came from Denver. And so I feel like I'm from Denver, I suppose.
You are from Denver if you want to be. We accept and love you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Man, the family not jiving with you. That hits so hard. I was the tipping point in my family of like progressive thought and like letting go of racism and bigotry, because we're Southern and those things are prevalent in certain parts of the South. I'm not saying everybody from the South is racist. Don't start.
It's only like 98%.
It's only the same percentage as you are Western European.
There we go. Yeah.
No. But like I was the tipping point, and so like everybody was like hardcore conservative Christian in my family until I'm just like, are we really speaking in tongues, or are we just going, ah? And I had the gall to ask that question, and then like the younger members of my family were like, yeah, so now there's like 5 liberals out of a huge Irish family.
How many siblings?
I've got 2 brothers, but they each have 2 kids, and it's just it's spread out. I'm old now, so there's a lot of fucking kids. I've only met like 90 of them.
Yeah, I have 12 siblings. So it's a little nuts. There's a lot more of me's out there, about 6 other genetic me's out there. And then I've got 6, more shaped by the same. About half of my siblings are adopted and half are, yeah. And
you the only fucking atheist, progressive guy?
No, but I was the first, and that's terrible. Like, not only is it terrible because it's you against everybody when you first leave, but then it's terrible again because when people then subsequently leave after you, it's your fault, which is wild because like the other people who left, I didn't deconvert anybody. They did it on their own time. The people in the world I don't know how to deconvert, who going in, I don't have any plan or feel any hope for changing their mind, is literally only members of my family. Anybody else, I think I have a chance with. It's just my family that I don't think I have a chance with. And so everybody came to their own way. But so since I've left, there's one person who was going in and out. I don't actually know her almost at all, but because we weren't really alive with the family at the same time. You and I have spent as much time as me and my oldest sister have spent together.
That's fucking sad.
Yeah, I don't care. It's honestly, like, it's fine to me. I don't long for a relationship with her or feel like anything's absent. That said, I have relationships with some of her kids that I care about and stuff, and she's dying, which is sad. It's as sad as anybody really dying to me. But yeah, and so that's the weird range of my family, though. I have like my oldest sibling is in her 50s, and my youngest sibling is like 5.
Oh shit.
It's a pretty big spread. My dad thinks he's going to make it to like 75 years old and see his youngest daughter turn 18. He's an insane person. Is
he still on the, like, I get a planet thing? Is he getting a planet?
Yeah. He's, as far as I know, like I I kind of hope, I don't know, there's been a few things that have shaken things over the years where I've been like, ooh, if there's something that could get him to finally reconsider, it might be this. And usually I would say that surrounds the way the church poorly treats his special needs children, which I know, like, one of my parents' redeeming qualities is they really do care about their special needs kids. Not as much some of the others, but the special needs kids, they clearly care about them. And it bothers them. You can tell the way the church does not step up to the plate for someone with special needs kids. And so to the point of feeling like at church, they're a nuisance, I would say. But unfortunately, this is a guy who converted to the church in like 1967, back when black people weren't allowed to fully participate, lived through them changing their minds on black people, but not on everything. Like, maybe still no interracial marriage. Oh, no, we were being racist. Just kidding. And has seen all of the shifts and the changes of the church becoming a totally different place than now. And it's still garbage, but different garbage. And has stuck with it all the way. I don't know what could turn him off from the church at this point.
With my parents are older. Is your dad? He's a little older as well.
Yeah, he's in his 60s. I don't know. I don't remember how old. I guess he'd be, I don't know, 66 maybe.
Okay. So he started fucking young. If your sister is 50 and he's 66,
she's adopted. She was adopted as a teenager.
Okay. I was like, damn.
Yeah. She was my two oldest biological brothers had been born before she was brought in by my parents.
I know with my folks, there's at least my mom is still a believer, right?
Yeah.
And I don't try and impact that. And the reason being is my mom is old as shit. I was a late in life, like you're having a baby, and you've got gray pubes kind of a situation. Yeah. And my mom is so old that I don't want to take this goofy thing from her, because like the fairy tale is part of that, what keeps her going. Is that bad?
I felt that way about my grandmother. In fact, I was bothered by the fact that my mother purposefully told my grandmother that I had left in the final months of my grandmother's life, just to try and basically drive a wedge, to change. My grandmother still had a mostly positive perception of me, knew I hadn't been really going to church and some things like that. I had been living with an ex that when we were dating and stuff, which are no-nos, but she still like fundamentally wasn't much bothered by all of that. And my mom knew that I wasn't trying to tell my dying grandmother something like that for her to stress about or potentially trigger the event that would kill her. And she sort of did it anyway as a sort of control, being a piece of shit sort of thing. And so I empathize entirely with, I've told people, like, look, there's nobody that I think is off the hook for bad beliefs, but I don't not have priorities. And I have 1,000 different kinds, not just people, individuals, millions of, but thousands different kinds of Christian that are a higher priority to me than people on their deathbed. Like it's you got to have priorities. And if there was nobody else, would I maybe? Still probably not. It's like, they're going to be dead soon. Their existence is about to cease. What's the point here?
Well, and that's the thing, is like my mom's got some kind of rough shakes in life right now. I don't want to get into the specifics, but like life is not being easy to her towards the end. Yeah. And she's got this coping mechanism. I don't think it's healthy, but also it's the only one she's going to have. Yeah. Do I want to take that? Probably not. Is that ethical? Probably not. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, ethics are subjective anyway. It's sort of like, what do we decide is ethical? Because I would even say, like, I backed off trying to challenge my parents as often when my mother was dealing with the death of my other grandmother, leading up to it, because my grandmother basically died a year before she died. The dementia got so deep that you're now basically taking care of a person who's gone. Like this isn't, they don't even remember who you are. And she stayed alive for a long time after that level of dementia had set in. And at that point, I'm like, what is the point? What's the, like, even going after my parents? Yes, I don't approve of the way they're raising my siblings, but it's not as though me challenging them on this has ever successfully gotten them to change anything. If anything, I have members of my family who are still, one especially, who's still in the church, but socially and sort of culturally and is kind of closer to not in the church than in the church, but still sort of pays lip service, but is very progressive in child raising and stuff. And that person has gotten the parenting style of my parents to change far more effectively than me being like, hey, here's a study on why, like, spanking is evil by every mechanism, so you shouldn't do it. Meanwhile, they already weren't doing it because you're not allowed to spank your adopted kids in Wyoming. So it's like the state will go like, well, now they're not adopted anymore, you piece of shit, especially because they started as like foster and stuff. So they already had to learn how to change for their non-biological children anyway. And so I don't know. It's a tough situation where I'm at this point. My parents are related to me, and I will cordially respond to their messages. But I have openings. If anybody would like to apply to be my parents, there's a biological set of parents, and then there's this other position that I'm joking. I'm not really trying to fill, but it doesn't feel like. Not only does it not feel full now, at some point I recognized that my parents never actually filled that position. They treated me more like a competitive sibling. And as the people who were tasked with protecting me from danger instead took up the role of being the danger after I was born. And so that's my complicated family situation in a nutshell.
Well, you turned out great, bud.
That's not true. I am horribly not adjusted. You're so wrong.
No, I'll fight you about it. And I'm enormous. Yeah, that's true. You'll win. But I am very, I mentioned this to you before the show, but I'm very glad for the impact this channel has. And I'm not willing to leave this channel and my other stuff I work on until the channel can continue to have that impact or more without me. If that day becomes available, none of you will ever see me again. I will just disappear. As soon as I can do all the work without being visualized or perceived, I'm out. But yeah, I appreciate that. I'm not well adjusted. And I definitely have issues and things, and I didn't turn out great, but I'm able to be self-aware and make sure that I try to leave the world a little bit better than it would have been without me when I eventually die. Can I challenge you on that? Are you comfortable with that?
No. Go ahead. Sure.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do it anyway. You're going to have to hang up on me.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is part of my definition of what a decent person is that self-awareness and that acknowledgement that, yeah, we may have flaws and we may have little pieces of us inside of us that are broken, but the goal is to just leave this place a little bit better. What else could be definitively a good person than that, Jimmy?
Yeah, I feel you. You use the phrase "you turned out great," which I'm saying is different. I did not turn out. Yeah. I'm not healthy. I'm not well. Like, that's what I mean.
Understood.
But and I've given up on the concept of, so the phrase, like the longer phrase usually people give is, "I'm going to leave this place better than when I left, than when I got here." Mm-hmm. I can't do that. The world will suck more when I die than when I was born. But the amount it will suck more will be slightly reduced, I hope, because I was in it. I can make it, I can not add to it. Whether I existed or not, there's an amount of more it was going to suck. And if I can reduce that by a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of percent, that's my only goal. But I definitely can't leave it better than when I found it. The world is fucking terrible. And there are days where people tell me, this is going to get very graphic, but a friend of mine was telling me yesterday about, there is a trend, I think it's on like TikTok or across Reddit and stuff, called bubblegum pink, where people literally just shit on sex workers according to how pink their pussy lips on OnlyFans are. And they've essentially assessed them. And apparently the trend started with an underage person's nudes leaking somewhere and them shitting on this underage person's nudes for not having pink enough pussy lips. And when I was being told this story, I literally just thought, like, cool, let's just hit the button and nuke the goddamn place. Like, it's humans were a mistake. Let's leave this fucking world behind. That's insane to me that these are trends.
Yeah, I think I'm too old. I'm too old. Like, I'm so far detached from like TikTok culture that like I was completely unaware of that.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, is this I mean, clearly they have consequences because they're impacting people's lives negatively, but is it, in the grand scheme of things, like a inconsequential, like small demographic of people just being really shitty and loud about it? Or is this like a culture-wide, like, time to...
The loudness will be artificial, but girls are going to kill themselves over it. And so it's kind of like, how do you can't take it not seriously because the loudness is artificial. But also, like, if we actually cared about little girls killing themselves, we would delete Instagram, the entire application. Instagram would be destroyed. TikTok would probably have to be destroyed. Like we have data that shows specifically little girls. I'm not saying it's great for little boys, but that specifically little girls are killing themselves, and it's because of these apps and the inability to control the monsters that these apps have become. And so it's sort of, in a society that doesn't give a fuck in the first place, it's wildly insane. Do you know the term mid? I'm trying to lighten. You have heard.
Yeah, I yelled at a friend for calling herself mid the other day. Laura, if you're watching, you're not mid. You're whatever is better than that. Not you.
Another Laura. I hate that term. I hate that in today's society, we have so told everyone you're in a constant state of not just performance, but assessment. You are being assessed on your performance. There's a type of Rotten Tomatoes, and you have a tomato score that is so ingrained in us that right now, as an insult, we tell a person that they are garbage for being average. And I am such a incredibly autistic human being that average is an aspiration for me. Like, the concept of going somewhere and blending in and not being the person who's visibly strange is a goddamn dream. And you're all insulting each other with the concept of being average. What the actual fuck?
Yeah, my below average grades growing up, I would have loved to have been mid. My God, I every grade before I was medicated, which was after high school, so I don't know why I phrased it that way. I squeaked by. It was just like, is he gonna make it? And he made it. But but yeah, now we are. That you're right. That's a particularly galling insult for those of us that struggled.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know people will compare it to, like, it's basically the new version of Basic, and they're technically right, but Basic felt different. I don't feel like it was so on the nose. The concept of Basic, of like, I'm not saying Basic was good. Just stop insulting each other. Like, stop being so fucking judgmental and like deciding your life's value is how well you've compared yourself to people below. Stop making yourself feel larger by making other people feel smaller. That would be the first thing. But it's going to keep happening. There was something about Basic that was like, I have called concepts basic before, that I do stand by that. Like, yes, if you're going to be that basic about this and remove all nuance and remove all, I liked the term basic conceptually. Mid is just being a tremendous asshole. And on the other hand, it's like, there's something weird about it where you're like, it's still better than saying like, wow, you dress like shit. That would be below average. Now the insult is you dress like average. You fail to excel. And once again, people kill themselves. Like, that's the fucking
I feel like it's worse. It fucks with your head on it. Like, if you tell me I dress like shit, it's like, yeah, it's hard to find clothes for giants. Fuck you. I don't give a shit. Mid, I'm like, also, fuck you. I don't blend into a crowd. But if you call my balance mid, that'll fuck with my head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's funny how, like, I don't give a fuck about any personality-based insult. And I shouldn't even say this because now people who want to hurt me are going to tailor their comments to how I'm going to give them advice. people will talk about like, does anybody else find Jimmy off-putting? You know who finds me off-putting the most? Me, motherfucker. So try and top that shit. I don't care about any of those insults. It's always the ones that are like, why can't Jimmy figure out this production thing? Why is the lighting so bad? Why is like, I obsess over. I am a dick about how much better the production is on this channel than channels that have millions of subscribers. This channel takes this shit fucking seriously, and it's the only thing I care about. And so like, I can get like 10 in a row of like, God, I wish Jimmy would shut up. Why does he feel like he always have to talk? Does the co-host ever get a chance? That sort of shit. Some of those I'll think about and I'll go, maybe I did talk too much, but it's not, I don't internalize it painfully. But people start shitting on my production and acting like this isn't the best goddamn produced show at our subscriber and viewership level on the fucking planet. And I just start getting freaked out.
Okay.
That's what bugs me. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I won't shit on your production values. I think it's impressive that you do your own production and like hosting at the same time. I do a little bit of streaming and stuff like that. That's not easy. Yeah. So good job.
I'm going to send you a picture. I'm mostly just trying to complain about, we only have 78,000 subscribers on the line.
Oh, wow.
Our average daily viewership ranges between 20 to 50,000. But this is what I am currently monitoring from my end. And I'm just sitting here going like, at our size, nobody's doing this. And in fact, at much larger than us, nobody's doing this. Organizations that have existed doing a similar thing to the line for decades before don't have as good of production as we do. And despite having teams of 5 to 10 people to run it, and I can run all of this by myself at the same time as hosting a show. So at me, bro. Anyway, that's the thing that I get really...
It's a good setup, my friend.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Thank you. That's one of the desktops. There's actually 3 more that I shift between using Windows changing desktop feature. But anyway, that's not important. Nobody wants to hear me brag about how fucking amazing I am. Do you want to start the conversation? Do you want to talk to Emanuel? See how it goes?
Yeah, let's see. I'm telling you, I don't think I'm going to fix things either, but
that's
we'll
all right. Emanuel, you are on the line.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, today.
Thanks for taking my call.
Don't. I feel like you're thanking me, hoping that that's going to, like, improve the odds I won't hang up if you get ridiculous. But we'll see. We'll see. Emanuel, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I won't sound ridiculous. I was thinking that, how society, I just want to talk about how society actually feminizes men and how could we fix that?
Wait, okay.
It's kind of like
Emanuel,
a question.
If you're going to pose a question, you got to stop for us to respond to it. Because you've just said, how can we fix society feminizing men? What about a feminine man needs to be fixed? What is broken in a feminine man?
Okay. So I'm a victim of this particular issue. So it's
we can talk about that in a second. Answer my question. What would be broken in a feminine man?
Like feeling anxious, being more emotional, et cetera.
I'm sorry. So the phrase feminized means to be more anxious and to be more emotional.
Yeah, that's what society actually thinks.
Hey, how many wars were started because of emotional men?
Like a lot.
All of them. How many were started because of emotional women?
I don't think there's a lot.
None of them. Yeah, that's 0. Emotional men, 100%. Emotional women, 0%. So I got to tell you, if the threat of becoming a feminine man is that I would be more emotional like unto a woman, as opposed to emotional like unto a man, emotional unto all the war starters, as opposed to all the not war starters, I got to tell you, I haven't yet heard what's broken. The concept of, we could argue about it if we wanted, the idea that women or feminine people are more emotional than men is absurd. It's so stupid. Men are incredibly emotional creatures. You can scan their brains. They mostly make decisions on emotions. It's just that it's different. We associate anger as somehow righteous, therefore not emotional when we talk about men. But women who may have higher experiences of empathy, demographically, it's not universal. We go like, yeah, those empathetic things, the things that get them more sad, or the things that make them feel, the things we find unpleasant when we're exposed to, those emotions are more emotional than our emotions that have started every war. So anyway, what were you saying was broken about being a feminine man?
Yeah. It's like, you guys are probably like older than me, so I'm kind of younger. But even in my time when I was like a teenager, like men were like, expected, they have like a certain expectancy from society, and society was not okay of, males expressing their emotions. So I think it's kind of like harmful to see a lot of males being in the safe space, because, it doesn't seem really
Did you listen to what I said, Emanuel? Because you just expressed the opposite. Men weren't encouraged to express specific emotions. Emotions generally. If somebody gets up right now, if Matt Gaetz gets up and yells very emotionally about the trans panic and how scared everyone should be because trans people might live and exist and be happy, he will be greeted as a leader of men, despite the fact that he's being very irrational and emotional. So it's not a matter of emotions. We weren't allowed to be emotional. It's that we were only allowed to express the emotions and even experience the emotions that we were told were okay. But being moved to tears by a beautiful gay love story, as everybody should have been if they watched episode 3 of Last of Us. I won't say more than that. But if you don't ugly cry at that episode, I don't fucking trust you as a person. But Emanuel, you still haven't identified why being a feminine man makes somebody broken. Before we go, Jesse, do you have any questions or thoughts for Emanuel?
Yeah. Hi, Emanuel. I'm going to jump in real fast, buddy.
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with this, but the common notion that is accepted is that men are strong. Would you say, and if just a yes or no would be a perfect answer for this question, would you say that being strong is a manly trait, Emanuel?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what is easier? What requires more strength? Yelling at some guy because he cut you off in traffic and losing your shit and whining and throwing shit, or telling your dad that he hurt you growing up because he didn't actually listen to you or pay attention to you? What requires more power and more force of character? Being emotionally vulnerable and emotionally honest in the moment, or just being a big loud dick?
Probably the second option would be harder.
Yeah. Right. It takes way more strength to be emotionally vulnerable. You're right. So in that regard, I don't think that's actually feminizing. I think that's just becoming a more sincere and more genuine person. But it certainly also requires more strength to be honest with your emotions. And I feel like there's this false notion being put on being a sincere human, of femininity, but really it's strength of character. If you ask me, I think men are getting stronger.
Oh, really?
I do. I believe so.
But,
I mean,
but here's the thing, there are political or religious, sometimes religious positions that you don't expect men to be on the side of. And nowadays it's just like the younger ones, our generation, seems to be aligned with the gender that they don't conform to. Like, we don't expect males to support, for example, free everything. Like, you understand what I'm saying, right?
No,
so
free everything? What are you talking about?
No, what I mean is it's like, there has been a conduct where, people are like, questioned, or they took a survey of what their political party is. Like, are they conservative or liberal? Are they left or right?
Right.
And much of the younger generation, our generation specifically, I'm really young, so our generation specifically is aligned more with like, feminism or
equality, progressive values. Let's not make the fact whether or not you succeed or not be dependent on where you are born, who you are born as. Let's actually give everybody access to the same opportunities. Yes, that is true. For the first time ever, younger generations are becoming more left-wing as they get older, as opposed to prior generations, which became more conservative. And it's the first time in human history that's happened. Not human history, American history.
Yeah, not just that, but also the religious aspect of males specifically. It's like, for example, the church
Emanuel,
that I grew
are you
up,
calling to
like
an atheist,
the Mennonite church?
An atheist show where you constantly talk with atheists to tell us we should lament that there's a lowering of religiosity amongst men? It's a weird place to say that.
There's we're getting lesser and lesser religious.
Great, excellent.
So that have an effect on our
tremendous. That's a great thing, and I love that. Emmanuel, you had earlier said you were a victim of being feminized. I'm willing to now go down that road with you and hear what you think was you being feminized. If you don't want to get too personal, you can tell us. This isn't a you have to whatever. I understand that when we're getting into what I think is going to be abuse stories, only share what you're willing to share. Do understand that if we have to stop at some point and we can't explore certain questions, then we're not going to be able to get further with the conversation. But go ahead with whatever you're comfortable with. Tell us what your feminization, what specifically was a thing you were being feminized to do and how that hurt you.
Yeah, when I was in Ethiopia, I was a college student at a certain point. I didn't finish my degree, but there was a war, so I have to flee my home country and come to United States until things get peaceful.
Okay,
but,
so far, real quick, Emanuel, I do want to say,
being encouraged to join the military.
Exactly. I'm very glad, because I'm glad you're alive, Emanuel, that you didn't fall. So far, I'm glad that you didn't fall for this fake masculine patriotism fetish that if the war comes, you should jump on the front lines and be excited to die for other people's problems and the shit that other people are forcing onto you. You're alive right now, and that would have gone, the chances of that would have gone down, and we wouldn't be friends talking on the line right now were you to die. So far, I haven't addressed the problem. Is that what you're saying was the problem? You should have stayed?
Not just that. Like, I also sometimes have like condition where, I feel like anxious, and there are qualities that you expect from like women that if you speak about while being a man, you're kind of like mocked in society.
Hey, Jesse.
And I have been like mocked in the past.
You are perhaps the most masculine person I've ever met. I don't know whether Emanuel would agree with that or not. There are even things about your life that you could call somewhat traditional. You're in a cishet marriage. You have a wholesome family and all of that isn't traditional because everybody had a choice in the matter. That's sort of the non-traditional part. But you as far as masculinity goes, this is how I feel about myself. I don't, the least traditionally masculine thing about me is that I'll fuck dudes if the right dude comes along. But other than that, literally I spent the day before joining Jesse here on the show in my wood shop, making myself sore and cutting, and making loud saws cut through woods and shit. I feel drawn to a lot of things that would have been called traditionally masculine, but I'm not going to compliment myself and say but I'll say it about you. You're probably the most masculine person I know. Do you ever experience anxiety?
Only every day, all the time, every day.
Non-fucking stop.
Yeah, and I don't think that is a quality of femininity. It's a quality of my own unresolved trauma and pain, but those aren't, and honestly, like if I'm being real honest, my wife is so much stronger than I am, and she's not masculinized. She is, but she has dealt with more bullshit in her life and handles it so much better. So maybe being a flaky, anxious mess is a masculine trait.
Yeah. I love you to pieces, and this is not at all an insult. If it comes to talking to people like Emanuel, you're who I'd want to have on the show. If like Alex Jones called in and we were going to have a full-on fight, I'd probably ask for your wife. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, she's a beast. No, you're right.
She's amazing. I love the two of you tremendously. But Emanuel, do you know what's actually happening in your brain when you're experiencing anxiousness?
I mean, like what I was taught, like what other people say, they say it's like a lack of faith.
Yeah, so they're wrong.
Kind of like lack of belief.
Let's not talk about religion. Let's talk about when you experience anxiousness, when you are having a panic attack, for example, your heart rate has raised and you are feeling the world crush on you. Do you know what's happening in your brain?
Yeah, I have took some psychology courses, so I'm probably familiar with what you're talking about. Sometimes it could be from chemical imbalance. Sometimes it could be from stress. So I know there are a lot of factors that contribute for you to be anxious.
Do you know what adrenaline and cortisol are?
No, I don't know those specific terms.
So adrenaline is the hormone that your body gets flooded with when you basically need to jump to action. You need to be alert. You need to be ready to go, whatever. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It basically tells your body and your brain. There are going to be people who are like psychology experts. Like, that's not the best way to explain this. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. You can come. But cortisol is what we associate with being our stress hormone. It basically says like, hey, you're in danger right now. You cannot relax right now. So you get your sort of alertness and you're crazy, and then your cortisol. These things are flooding your system when you are having an anxiety attack. They have nothing to do with what your chromosomes are, as far as if you are an XX or an XY or one of the things in between that we now know exist, because that turns out that's not a perfect binary. Has nothing to do with if you're a man or a woman. And a lot of hypotheses are out there over why we have such higher rates of anxiety amongst current populations. And there's many things that make a lot of sense. We are largely exposed to a lot more people and a lot more danger in a day, or potential sources of danger. We have to be in a more constant state of alert. So we're getting these things flooded more. There's things about the way we potentially were raised up, the way we were nurtured, and the way none of these are female traits. None of these are feminizing traits. This is just brain chemistry. Something is telling your body you need to be ready and you should be stressed right now. And sometimes it's misfiring. Your fight or flight response is showing up. I get them in the middle. I literally wake up in panic attacks. I don't know how to fucking explain that, but it's not because society feminized me to go like, oh, you know what? I'm okay to wear a pink polo. So now all week I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, freaking out that a tiger's about to eat me. Like, there's no link there, buddy.
Yeah, but what about the dress? Like, for example,
what dress?
The Bible says it's like abomination to wear women's clothing.
Right. What determines what women's clothing are? Because right now, some of the most masculine people that you see by culture, have you ever met like Polynesian men who are giant? They often like a lot of football colleges go and try and take Polynesian men from islands to be on their football team, because these are people who are, and they're wearing things that we would call skirts in our society. You're literally talking about social construct.
Oh, okay.
What determines what women's clothing are or not? And why would I care what the Bible says when we've already told you we don't believe the Bible is true, and you've often agreed with us that it isn't true and then went, yeah, but I believe in the Bible, but your points are right about why it's not right.
But also, there's also a societal consequence that I see, all of this progress going in, there's also a societal consequences. Like,
you fucking nailed it, man.
Defining everything.
Emanuel, you are so right. Society right now will treat you like fucking shit if you are trans. And so then trans people have a higher rate of suicide, and dipshits like Steven Crowder go, why would you want to be trans when it's going to lead to you being more suicidal? Because I guarantee to make you feel that fucking way, because I'm a sack of shit. Society needs to improve to take care of each other. The solution isn't to tell trans people to stop being trans, to tell feminine men to be more masculine. The solution is to pull some Jesus Christ style philosophy out and go, hey, how about you take the fucking log out of your eye before talking about somebody else? How about you fucking cast the first stone if you've got no sins? By the way, Jesus not that great of a philosopher, contrary to popular belief, but I'm talking to a Christian right now, so I'm going to appeal to a Christian and basically mention, like, in what way is this an individual's fault who needs to conform to something that is antithetical to their identity and their brain, and not society's fault for not being a bunch of fuckfaces?
Yeah, but sometimes you have to be careful, if the thing is not harmful, why don't you comply with the society's rule? Sometimes it's not good to challenge every idea that the society has.
Emanuel, I don't know what pronouns you use. I can take a wild guess.
They're on the screen.
What's that? Oh,
they're
sure
on the
enough.
Yeah.
I don't read so good. Stop it.
It's all good.
Yeah, no. So if society was saying, Emanuel, you have to start identifying as she, her, as female, that would be harmful to you. You wouldn't like that, how that felt, right? Or would you?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't like it.
You wouldn't like it. So, and you made the point that why not just comply if it's harmless? Because it's not harmless for everybody. It's harmless for folks like me that identify as masculine and use he/him pronouns. But if I didn't, and I was born with this body, but up here and in here I felt different than that society expectation is very harmful and very detrimental, and often causes folks like that to be so desperate that they take their own lives. And that is definitively harmful for not only them, but their loved ones and people whose lives that they could touch, Yeah.
Yeah, but there are a lot of stories that, I would say that, you could just comply with the rules, comply with the laws in a way that you're not harmed. Like the thing that you just said, it sounds really harmful. I'm not saying
give us an example of a non-harmful
that the society is.
Give us an example of society's demand for compliance that is currently meeting challenge that wouldn't be harmful if people would just comply.
Like if society is not expecting me to be very vulnerable, why wouldn't I stop being vulnerable? I don't see the point in being vulnerable.
Okay, Emanuel, really, you don't see the point. Useful. You don't see the point. What if I tell you I see the point, though? I feel in the same way that Jesse just gave you a great example, and you should have been able to grasp it well enough to not then ask such a self-defeating question, but you didn't. So what if I tell you, you don't see why it wouldn't hurt you at all to just not be vulnerable if society wants you, and I tell you that would feel like a death to me. It would feel like killing a part of me to suppress myself to that point. I would have to murder a part of myself to change who I am to not be vulnerable. Am I describing harm or not? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's okay. I gotta jump in because you cannot choose to not be vulnerable. You can try and hide it, but you can't choose that. That's not even up to you. That's like choosing not to be your height. Yeah. Some people are just vulnerable. Some people are adamant and bulletproof, and I'm not one of those people. And the weakest I've ever been in my entire life was when I pretended to be invulnerable, when I pretended to be hard internally. It's fake, it's weak, and people can see through it. It's so easy to see through when you have to pretend to be indestructible. You can't choose that as no matter if it was illegal for a man to cry, you'd still cry on the inside.
Yeah. Also, there are like scary things. It's just like, I gotta say, like, feminism is really scary.
Why? Give me an example of something you're afraid that feminism is going to deliver to you. And not Twitter feminism. Feminism.
Okay. No, it's like, for example, if we start saying that it doesn't matter whether you decide to have a family or not.
No feminist has said that.
I think it will.
If you want to have a family,
no. They say,
Emanuel, if you want to have a family with a woman and have kids, and you want to be the provider of that family, and your wife wants, that's the important part, wants to be the stay-at-home mom, actually wants that, feminists are not going to stop either of you from doing that. I know, because I want all of those things. I am interested in, at some point, meeting, even though I'm pansexual, probably a woman, because I tend to be more romantically attracted to women. But as far as sexual attraction goes, I couldn't care less. I want to meet probably a woman, do some equivalent of marriage, say like, hey, let's do at least the next couple of decades together. I would want to be the provider of that family. And I would hope to meet a woman who's interested in, if we have a couple of kids, being the primary nurturer of those kids, though, of course, pulling my own side of that and everything, and it being something very healthy. And you're literally talking to somebody who wants to have a family like you're describing, and describes himself as almost a feminist extremist. So if I can make those two things work together, why wouldn't you be able to? What about feminism would stop you from doing that?
No, I'm not saying, Jimmy, that feminism stops you from having marriages. What I'm saying is feminism inherently doesn't allow you to, like, for example, to speak out on biblical principles of marriage. Like, for example,
Emanuel,
me as a gospel,
you call this show
servant,
once a week at minimum, this channel, and you advocate for biblical principles. And almost every single person you've ever spoken to on this channel, maybe all of them, I just don't want to be universal and speak for someone who might say something, would describe themselves as a feminist. And the only things they've done with you is disagree. But your ability to speak out, to say that biblical traditional marriage is incompatible with feminism, is not the same as saying I can't speak and advocate for my beliefs, because no one has been stopping you. I have been told by people time and time again in the live chats, ban Emanuel, and I haven't banned you. The most I did was tell you to take a 2-week break because you were still repeating the same bad arguments. So you literally call, again, a somewhat extremist feminist channel and get to talk about your biblical perspective. Is that correct?
I mean, I don't know if they were feminist or not. I don't have any idea.
Yes, we are, pretty much the whole channel is. I can't think of anybody who wouldn't say they are. Again, there's a difference between feminism and what you're probably perceiving from Twitter by going and finding a group of loud people who are annoying and even say like, yeah, if we could, we should just put men underground for breeding until we don't need them for that shit too. Of course, those extremists exist out there somewhere. They don't represent anybody, and you wouldn't even call them a part of feminism in reality, even if they want to co-opt the label. Nothing is stopping you.
People in person who have this radical ideas. Like, I've met people in person that have really, really, really radical and very toxic.
What's one of the radical toxic ideas you've met?
For example, like, I've heard people saying that, it's not about, for example, I remember in college that says that, she was saying, I don't know what she, I don't know what her point was, but she actually said, like, implicitly that they have more value in society than us. And anything that we say is like useless to society. It just causes harm.
And is that the feminist perspective, or did you meet one particularly shitty person who was basically trying to be a misandrist meme? Because for some reason people go like, when somebody says like, Ben Shapiro will say like, yeah, this group of people with this radical idea exists, and they don't. But then a bunch of people go, well, I don't like Ben Shapiro, so I'm going to go fill that role for him. It's fucking weird. It's a stupid toxic trait. Did that person represent what a collective of feminists would say represents us, that women are more valuable than men, which, by the way, is usually the cop-out Christians use to tell women why they don't get authority, because their value as birth givers is so much higher than us that they shouldn't also be then like bogged down by things like the priesthood and miracle giving. Their value is so much more that it's important we run the world so that they do their much more valuable task. So it's weird that you'd appeal to that. Did you meet a person who represents collective feminism, or did you meet one asshole who probably didn't like you, Emanuel, and told you that?
Okay. No. It's not just here. Even when I was back home in Ethiopia.
I'm not.
I remember.
Yes, there are bad people everywhere. I'm not asking you for individuals. I'm asking you for the collective representation of feminism, which is actually pretty simple. Men and women should all have access to the same opportunities. Nobody is saying that there's no difference between men and women. That's a stupid thing to claim. We wouldn't acknowledge that trans people existed and would feel the need to change their gender if there wasn't something that they were feeling that was different than what they were experiencing. We're not saying that demographic gender things aren't true, that generally you're going to have a high percentage of men who like fishing more than women who like fishing. However, we are saying a woman who likes fishing doesn't now not become a woman, and a man who doesn't like fishing isn't inherently not a man. Everybody down to their individual levels are who they are. Access to opportunity should be completely equal, and we shouldn't have systems in place to prevent people, for example, a woman doing the same job as a man, not being paid the same, or being expected to work more for the same amount of pay, which is actually probably the more modern issue, which is that a woman, to earn her executive position, generally does 2 to 3 times as much work for the same position as a man, even if they are paid well. That turns out to be probably the more pressing modern issue than even the gender wage gap. So what about all that, Emanuel? Are you representing individual shitty people that you say are out there, or are you representing what feminism actually represents?
Yeah, it's just like I have this, I have this fear where how far are we going? It's like, what things that you just said is really good. Like, it sounds really good.
Good, you're
like,
a feminist
who
then.
Opposes equality or...
If you agree with everything I just said, Emanuel, you're a feminist.
No. I'm not saying I agree with everything. I'm saying some of the ideas that you just said is really good. Things that I don't agree with is like you
I don't want to talk
that,
over you, but I'm gonna probably. What part of you think that men and women deserve the same opportunities in life do you disagree with?
For example, like what I disagree. No. I'm not saying we shouldn't have equal opportunity. I actually agree equal opportunity. What
Good,
I'm
you're a
saying
feminist.
You're a feminist,
that
bud.
demons say.
You really are.
No,
it's cool, though.
Okay.
We're awesome.
Here's the thing.
We're handsome.
I mean, in your definition, I might be, but
That is the
in
definition.
general, like what I've seen, it's like, oh, that's the difference.
Emanuel, I have a question actually for you because it's going nowhere. You want to have a wife and family, right? I think you've said that before. You want to have a wife and kids?
No, I did not specifically. I mean, if God is willing.
Does that appeal to you? Don't worry about what God wants, because whether God is willing doesn't matter about what you want. You know that God allows in your religion for you to have a wife and kids. Does that life appeal to you? Would you like a wife and kids?
Yeah, it's just like the response is like, when you're concerned with fleshly desires, it causes death.
Oh my God, so Emanuel, you can't avoid. This is sort of like what Jesse sort of already mentioned this too. These are things you can't control, things that you would like, things that you would want. My favorite color has been red my whole life. I can't defend it. It just is. I like the color red, and when you pair it up with the color black, it makes me horny. These are things about me. People with foot fetishes often don't want to have foot fetishes. They have them anyway. And I don't understand it at all. Okay. But it's a thing, and I don't judge them for it because it's just a thing that happens. Is a want of yours something that you would like, regardless of whether you go, God, you better give this to me or not, be to have a wife and kids?
Yeah, it's like
yes is good
when
enough.
I previously call to your show, I usually use the term slave of Christ or slave of God.
I know your point, bud.
I don't believe I have free will.
Hey, I don't believe we have free will either, but we come from completely different perspectives on that. I just believe the universe is completely natural and everything that was going to happen and nothing else was ever going to happen than what ends up happening. But it's different. It's not, I don't think anybody's controlling anything. Here's the point I was trying to make with you that you're really avoiding trying to do the exercise with because of a type of religious virtue signaling where you want to not project that you ever allow yourself to have a wants or needs that God hasn't granted to you. The point I was going to make was that if you would then had a wife, would you want?
I prefer to be married if that's the question.
Cool, exactly. If God, you would celebrate that gift from God. Excellent. And let's say that gift comes.
Yes.
Which would you prefer? A wife who wants to help you raise a family because she loves you and that's what she wants to do as your partner, or a wife who wants to raise your family because she's been conditioned to raise your family. It's not actually what she wants, but she's going to just submit to that. Would you want the person who's there because that's where they want to be and who they want to love and the way they want to show their love? Or the person who is compelled to be there and is doing it completely in a sort of submission that you can't even really call consent? The consent is certainly very undermined. Which would you prefer?
I would prefer the one that has a consent. If that's what you're asking.
You're a feminist, Emanuel. I love you tonight because, that's what I would prefer too. In fact, not only would I prefer it, the difference between whether or not you're a feminist or not actually comes down to would you still take the other one, knowing that was the case? Because I wouldn't. I will not undermine consent. I will not accept somebody submitting to me in this scenario. There's ways to consensually submit. They're super fun. But that's not what we're talking about right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I am a feminist, I'm probably not vocal about it. Like I'm still in the closet. So. But what Emanuel, I think is it's like
Emanuel. The point is, because we're going to wrap this up. We've given you 35 minutes, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. The point is, you're a feminist because the core beliefs you have and the things that you think would be ideal in the world and the preferences you have line up. All of the things you've expressed, you can't get on board with. I don't get on board with. I don't like humans, and that is a genderless assertion. There are things about how men are culturally that culturally I find men repulsive. There are things about women which are cultural. Now, I also blame men for a lot of those cultural things because it's usually the way they reinforce the patriarchy over women that create these cultural things. But it doesn't matter. Culturally, what a lot of women have in common, in the same way as men, I also find repulsive. I find default humanity repulsive. I don't like either. By default. However, I recognize everybody, regardless of gender, and there's not just the two, but we've obviously been operating in these colloquials, their ability to break free of the cultural ways that society pushes toxicity on them. I judge individuals based on who they are, and I think everyone should have those opportunities, and we as a society don't have to make the defaults for both women and men. I grew up in Mormonism. It's the most patriarchal, shitty, garbage thing. And you know what they do? They trick women into raising their sons to be the toxic shitbags that their sons turn out to be. The fathers, who are also the toxic shitbags, aren't doing much of that. The toxic shit they're up going and doing has far to do with the reinforcement and maintaining of the patriarchy, but aren't actually the direct influences over. It's all a fucking bag of giant cultural garbage, and yet every individual, including myself who broke free from that, can break free from it. And as a society, we can come up with these baselines where we say, we don't have to suck so much. And the ways in which we shouldn't suck as much is why I'm a feminist. It is where my feminism lies, not just on our expectations of women and our treatment of women, but especially because of our expectations of men that need to change. That's where my feminism exists. If somebody comes and say women are better than men, the fuck, how are we going to measure that? As you were saying, you said somebody said to you. How are we even going to measure that? Humans by default fucking suck, and it doesn't matter what gender they are. How are we going to measure that? If somebody comes and says having a traditional family makes you a piece of shit, okay, let's have that debate. I think you're wrong, but I'll hear you out on it. How are we going to measure that and apply that across the board if any of the problems we see with past traditional family, coercion of consent, leaving the women in a position where they can't leave even if they're miserable and unhappy, but they're so dependent on it that they don't have any other choice. If we take away all of that fucking shit from it, what's still wrong with having that style of family? This is why I'm a feminist.
Yeah,
not any of the shit you said feminists are.
Yeah, but I still don't agree that I'm a feminist, actually. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, well, you'll come around, I hope. If you become intellectually honest one day. Jesse, go ahead.
Maybe in the future.
Part of that, Emanuel, is that you have either willfully or been misled to believe that misandry, hating men, and feminism are the same thing, and they're not.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've articulated that you believe that women deserve similar or the same opportunities that men get is a very feminist notion. In fact, it's a core principle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to do more research on this issue.
You should, bud.
I don't really pay attention to this kind of thing.
I have a last question to ask you, and then we're going to move on. And it should be very easy and quick. Which are better, Emanuel, men or women?
Like better, like in what terms? It depends on the question.
Existentially better.
On the context.
Existentially better. Not better at lifting weights where you can say demographically one versus the other, though there's going to be exceptions from both groups. Let's just say existentially, which are better, men or women?
I think we all deserve death. So, you
don't go so Christian with it. Just answer the question. The answer is either men, women, or neither.
I think both are terrible.
So neither, right?
So
I kind of do too.
Actually.
but in completely different ways. Your answer is neither, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Then you're closer to being a feminist than you realize you are.
Yeah, but I have to do more research.
Yes, you do. Tons more.
Before I start identifying it.
I agree. Do that research.
Okay.
All right, Emanuel?
Okay, thanks.
See you, buddy.
Thanks, Emanuel.
This is one of the few times I didn't have a bunch of people trying to just say, hang up on Emanuel. Why are you talking to Emanuel? A lot of people really liked the conversation with Emanuel. And you know what? So did I. I enjoyed the conversation with Emanuel.
I've got respect for where I'm going to call him a kid because I'm old, but it's also just a little bit shitty. I got respect for where the kid came from. Yeah. It's tough being an immigrant, and it's tough being a refugee from. It sounds like he came from some sort of conflict. Yeah. I mean, that's probably where the anxiety is coming from, is being an immigrant in America.
Yeah.
I hope he gets there. I believe in this kid. I know it's wacky. I know. I've heard him on your show a couple times. I'm like, I think this kid can get there. He's trying.
There's elements of self-loathing that clearly exist in here, and I don't know how to solve them. But this is why I think his intentions are sweet, and he's just fucking the whole thing up. Because we had him on talking to, so he's from Ethiopia. We had him on talking to my friend Nikki, who is a black woman, and he was defending slavery and the concept of slavery. A person from Ethiopia, I don't know for a fact that he's black, but a person from Ethiopia talking to a black woman about slavery being fine in certain contexts, and that if he was a slave, he would follow what the Bible says and just be grateful as a slave. And it's wild. He's trying so hard to find his identity, but he's even addressed just now. We got him to accept that he would prefer a partner who exists in consent and not submission. And yet he is trying to live his life entirely in submission of a religious ideology. It's very sad.
Yeah. What's Nikki's screen name? Does she have a screen name?
Nikki. Yes, Beat the Cult. Yeah.
Yeah, I love her, man. We drive on the Twitters.
She's awesome. She's awesome. I used to refer to her as Skeptic Nikki, but I think she's just going by Nikki these days, and Beat the Cult's the username. Yeah. Not that she's definitely still a skeptic. I'm not trying to raise any red flags for anybody who's like, wait, why? We do have a couple other calls that we'll jump in on. And how are your time constraints right now? Are you good?
I've got some more time on me. Let's talk to more people, bud.
Cool. And then after these couple of calls, we'll take Q&A by Super Chats. Any Super Chats, $5 or more. You all know that's how we end the show. Do send those in, because if we actually don't raise enough to cover the cost of the show, we have to sell the show to Emanuel. So send in those Super Chats. I usually just pick whichever the funniest caller is of the night and say that line. And I think Emanuel will.
That's your line. Made wifey laugh.
Good. We've got Andy in California asking about free will, which I just brought up. So Andy in California, what's up?
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've always found it interesting where you have free will, but yet God knows the future. And I've always thought that logically this can't work.
Correct.
I mean, why haven't they had, or why don't you see many apologists take this down the road and say, hey, this logically doesn't do it. I mean, ABC, this, here's why it's a complete fail all the time.
Andy, you're trying to argue with people who get magic as an option.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's no way that works. Even you put magic in there, it can't work.
All right, Andy, do you want me to turn into old Mormon self and debate it with you as a Mormon? You want me to try?
Okay. We'll try this.
I'll tell you how they do it. You're going to be right that I will be wrong still. I'm going to defend the wrong position, but go ahead. So you're saying that if God knows that we have free will, or if God knows what I'm going to do, that stops me from doing it. That stops us from having free will. Sorry, I'm fucking it up. But that's what you're saying, right?
Okay, well, let's say you're saying that just because God knows my decision doesn't mean I still have my decision. Isn't that what you're basically saying?
I'm Mormon Jimmy and telling you that God's knowledge is so vast that it's impossible for him not to know what we're doing. However, the plan of salvation is also a plan of accountability, and it has to do with there's basically rewards and punishments for either doing what you were supposed to do or not doing what you were supposed to do. And so God can't hold me accountable for a choice that he knows I'm going to make until I do it. So out of love, he allows me to live and experience those choices and free will. And even though he can predict what I'm going to do, because his knowledge is so vast and it'd be impossible for him not to know what I'm going to do, he's not able to hold me accountable for either the sins or the good things I did until I actually do them, until I make the choice.
Okay, and that does make sense.
Oh, really? Because it doesn't.
Let's wind back the clock till before God created anybody.
Yeah.
And he could create anybody he wants. He can create people that don't sin and will go to heaven, or he can create everyone that will sin and go to hell. Or a mixed bag of some do and some don't. I have a question. Why doesn't he pick just the ones that do the right thing? Why does he have to pick some that go to heaven and hell?
I'm so sorry that you're arguing with a Mormon, because the concept of our creation is very misunderstood across Christianity. We've always existed. So God didn't create us with the qualities we had. We've existed always as a type of intelligence and a type of consciousness out there. God, in his grace, took our consciousness and gave us a type of spiritual body, basically organized our consciousness into an actual collection of something that can be coherent and interact with other people. This is what was happening before we came to Earth, because we actually existed before we were born, with spirits, with bodies. We even looked like ourselves. We were these types of angels, and he sorted our organization into a spiritual body. And then it's important to his plan that we gain a physical body. And that's what we're doing right now, is getting our physical body on.
Okay, so we always existed, and we have to be able to choose one way or the other, but he already knows what our choices are.
That's just because of his vast knowledge. He's basically like the most complex computer you can know. It's not that he's seeing the future. It's that he can predict the future, and he's so good at, in the same way that I can walk outside and predict based on all of the factors that I know about the universe, that I'm going to see my car sitting in my driveway. I can technically get that wrong because there might be something I don't account for. He can account for everything, so he can predict the future perfectly even before experiencing it, because he knows every component. He knows ahead of time whether or not somebody came and stole the car. His prediction isn't seeing the future, it's expecting the future. Buddy, Andy, the exercise I'm trying to do with you here, because there's no point in keep going, I can do this forever.
Yeah.
I can answer with fucking magic. You can never win this debate. It's a pointless debate to happen, because you're right. It is illogical. If God knows what you're going to do and that you can never do anything else, then you don't have free will by definition. Otherwise, what's the definition of free will? And that's the thing you should have asked. What's the definition of free will? Because that's when you start to fuck them up. So you can do better, but it's literally, I have the option of saying, the answer is Wingardium Leviosa. I'm sorry for the transphobic example, but I knew everybody would get it. I have that option, and you can't poke holes in it if I tell you that in my universe, that's an option. And so what are you trying to argue against me with? It's at a certain point where you have to get a person to agree to what common reality we accept, and what we accept is something that confirms an element of that reality. Until you get that agreement from a person, and you ask the questions to get them there, there's no point in going forward, because they can literally Gandalf their way out of all of it.
Okay, I guess that's the way of doing it. I looked at it and thought, well, logically, this makes no damn sense at all.
You're right.
Either I have free choice or God knows the future. But if he knows the future, it's fucking pointless.
You just said logically, though. I'm Mormon Jimmy. Why the fuck am I restricted to logically? I don't need God to be logical. God is the ultimate illogical thing. Even as they say, well, I'm William Lane Craig, and they describe how his irrationality makes him rational. It's all stupid, self-defeating, but then also self-aggrandizing bullshit.
So it's basically gaslighting. They just gaslight each other to the point where
the latest terminologies and the established cornerstones of philosophies, because at the end of the day, we're talking about abracadabra.
Yeah.
So I don't engage super well with that, but it's a super valid question, and it's a great tool for deconstructing faith if you're asking it of a believer, if they're willing to engage with that honestly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Andy.
I enjoy your conversation. I watch you guys all the time, and like the last call, I actually think the world is filled with a lot of good people. I think the world gets better every year.
No disagreement there. I think there are lots of good people. It's relative lots, but yes.
I would rather live now than 100 years ago, be any king that ever lived 100 years ago.
I agree with that too. I'd rather live now because the Steam Deck exists now.
It's so good. It's so fucking good.
It's so good. And I'll tell you what, Andy, I would also probably rather live 100 years from now than right now. Probably. I don't know if we're going to nuke ourselves into fucking oblivion, but I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Put the caveat: we don't nuke ourselves.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, I see the futures being brighter and brighter. I think people they learn from mistakes and slowly get better. And I'm just hoping that. I mean, I'm 65, so I'm not going to see probably when the United States gets 50% atheist. I probably won't live long to see that happen. But
honestly, nice. Andy, you might though. If you look at the dramatic change and you accept that it happens on a curve and not on a straight line from the last generation to this current generation that's turning into voting age, you actually might see it happen. It might be a generation away. But atheist isn't great.
But I'm 65. I don't know if I have a whole generation more to live.
I disagree with you, sir. We're living. I don't know
half a generation. So.
Yeah, I think you got it. Probably a generation left. I don't know your particular thing, but many 65-year-olds will see one more generation transition at least. It could happen. Don't hope to see that. Hope to see a more than 50% humanist generation. Atheists mostly suck. That's the unfortunate thing. Like it's not a bunch of great people if atheism is the thing. This is why I don't try to start atheist communities anymore. I try to start humanist communities now. Because what the fuck do I have in common with atheists? Oh my God, we're going to be best friends because we both don't accept this one premise that has nothing to do with whether we're good people or not. Fuck that shit.
I agree. You're probably right that the atheists shouldn't win out. Should be the humanists that win out.
I would even rather have a more than 50% humanist, but they're still theistic society than a 50% atheist, non-humanist society by a lot.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, you have to have some type of idea of what you want your society to be.
Exactly.
Humanists do. Atheists basically is just one position. I don't believe in God. You have no idea what their position of what a life should be.
Yep.
That's where human secularism, at least something there, it goes beyond we don't believe in God. It goes to here's how we just should treat each other.
And because I believe skepticism,
different than
because I believe skepticism results in a person coming to the conclusion of secular humanism. That's why these shows exist, because I literally don't give a fuck about being an atheist. And I'm the guy who got a little bit of fame with the title Mr. Atheist and a show called Dear Mr. Atheist. And I don't regret it because it worked, but in a lot of ways I regret that people who meet me in person still go, oh my God, Mr. Atheist. Like, that sucks.
Well, I mean, maybe someday I'll be Mr. Millionaire.
Probably not, bud. I don't know how to be I'm probably a bad person at that point. If I guess there's a potential where I'd have millions in net worth if I sold my network and everything, but I don't know how to be an ethical millionaire and certainly not billionaire. So I promise you I'll never have $1 million in disposable income because I would assume that I'm evil if I did.
Well, you might get inflation. Maybe you're just an average person.
That's true. You're right. Hey, that's a really good point. Thank you, Andy. We're gonna hit this last call here, but I appreciate you.
Okay, Jimmy. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Bye, Andrew.
Yeah. I just don't know how to be an ethical millionaire. I've never asked you if you're a socialist or not, so I won't put you on the spot. But
put me on the spot. I don't give a shit.
Do you want to be a millionaire? I don't know. What do you want?
I totally want to be a millionaire. Here's the problem, though. Like, I would love to be a millionaire. I don't want to be a billionaire. Billionaires are food.
That's right. Billionaires are food. I see. There are things that I can say where obviously people would call someone like Hassan a millionaire, and I could see myself living in a home that I have purchased that technically I would have more than $1 million if I were to then sell that home. I'm just saying I'll never have $1 million cash on hand. Because I don't know how I could. Right now, it's literally like year after year. If I get to the end of a year and there's like money left over, I also don't love paying taxes, which is funny also. So I will literally like spend it on investing in gear for other people who contribute to the channel and stuff and put it into business expenses. I just can't ever think of being being a person who could write $1 million check because it was money I just had sitting in an account. I feel like it's incompatible with who I am.
Yeah, I don't think that if you've got $1 million in disposable income, you're probably doing something a little wrong. I'm just talking about like having a net worth of like over $1 million.
That'd be great. Hey, look, if you Google me right now, Jimmy Snow net worth, it's going to tell you my net worth is $5 million. I don't think that's true. I don't have I couldn't write $100,000 check today and just give it to you and you could go cash it. I don't know whether or not technically if you go like, well, you could find an organization to sell the line to, and based on its projected earnings for 10 years, I could collect, I don't know whether or not the value based on several years of revenue on like the line would be in the millions if I could sell it for it. But I know that I can't take the net worth that Google assigns to me to the bank. Not even close. And I know that there are months where I go, oh, fuck, I timed this poorly. I need money. Like fucking shit. It's not as simple as I in this capitalist hellscape. Unfortunately, being worth potentially millions is not actually being worth millions. I don't know how.
A million doesn't go that far. It's funny. Like my parents just retired and just sold their business that they started from their bootstrap.
Yeah, that's right.
And it sounds like a lot of money what they sold it for.
Yeah. And
I'm like, no, you sit on that shit because I don't know how long that's going to last you, and you don't have a good retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah. God.
Yeah. No, anyway. You're totally right.
$4. Talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah. The inflation point was a great point, but yeah, let's hit Jamie here. Not hit Jamie. Let's bring Jamie on. Jamie, who's apparently nearby because I live near Austin. Jamie wants to ask about sexist stereotypes if they're okay when you're joking. Jamie, go ahead.
Them's fighting words. Hit me.
That's right.
Okay, but I identify as a feminist. I really don't like sort of punching down in humor, but I actually enjoy self-deprecation, tapping into things like sexist stereotypes. One of my favorite ones was from an Irish comedian, Dillahunty, who says that men are born with one finger up their nose and one hand on their crotch, and then they get taller. And I think that's hilarious. But should I curb that kind of humor, even if it's directed at myself or people like me? For the betterment of like to just not normalize toxicity.
I don't know. You got any thoughts, Jesse?
You know, I would say, and it's not in everybody's skill set to do so, but I think if you have the ability to do so, to read the room, I is my personal stance. And then the great thing about being a progressive thinker is that I can change my stances if I find out that I've adopted something that's toxic. But my current understanding is that, you know, you identify as male. If you're only shitting on you, and especially if you're not in company that you feel is going to be impacted negatively by your jabs and self-deprecation, I feel like that's probably okay. But you know, if there are certain, I can just think of like 3 or 4 scenarios where it's like, yeah, you probably don't want to make that joke. So I don't know. Are you good at reading the room?
We are never the best judge of our own traits at comedy or rhetoric. Like, yeah. I'd have to be in a room and try it, and then I'd see, basically. So I would be I'm always wary. I tend to only make sure that I make sort of off-color jokes among people I trust and friends. And as much as I like performance and things like that, like doing a stand-up comedy set, just the thought fucking terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me, especially if I was going to tap into topics like that do have an edge to them, even if I'm directing them at myself.
I personally, my brand of humor is very self-deprecating as well. I don't use it. I don't say, "Hey, I'm ridiculous because I'm a man and I have an adequate wiener. My jokes are all it's about who I am personally, if that makes any sense. Like it's not. I try not to lean into the stereotypes because I feel like that is tricky territory. But I don't feel like comedy is antithetical to ethical conversation and progressive thought. I feel like it's just for me at least. And I'm not the Bible. I'm not any arbiter of absolute morality. But I feel like if I'm not impacting anybody negatively, and I mean that in the sincerest sense, because like there are people that can be impacted negatively by a lot of things. So I'm not saying like get over your feelings, Snowflake. That's not the vibe. I'm saying that if I am only speaking from my own perspective, I feel like you can be very funny and still lean into self-deprecating humor if that's your brand. What about you, Jimmy? What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, look, first thing is, if this is the thing you need to focus on whether or not to fix or not, amazing, because you fixed all the rest. This has got to be some of the lowest priority stuff to hit. Like, this is at the end of the list of things to worry about. But my instinct is to say, one, I know 10 years from now I'm going to look back at myself and go, nah, I wasn't great on this issue. And actually, there was a type of bigotry I wasn't even identifying, because that reasonably happens year after year. I realized that something I thought I was very sure of was me escaping bigotry. There was something still left. And this also doesn't just happen in an individual's life. It's generational too. I'm very good at identifying the bigotry of my parents and their parents. And we're always good at identifying where we came up short. And so you do your best in the meantime. My instinct is to say, it's probably fine. I watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't think that the episode where Larry David was making jokes about how he's a Jew who likes gefilte fish and that's okay was Larry David engaging in anti-Semitism that's going to harm Jews. And in that same episode, JB Smoove is basically saying, and I'm a black guy who likes watermelon, and that's okay. And I don't think that was him engaging in anti-black stuff that's going to hurt the black community. And so when I sit here and go, and I'm a cis man and I can't get my dick to shut the fuck up, I don't think I'm engaging in a sexist stereotype that's going, I think I'm speaking to if anything, it's almost like engaging the stereotype as an individual and saying my individualism isn't overwritten by this joke or this stereotype or whatever. And seriously, I wish I could get my dick to shut the fuck up. It just doesn't. Shut up.
If it gives you no peace, give it no rest.
That's right. See, you're fine. And you and I have now bonded over our collective understanding. Even when you said the joke at the beginning, the reason you said it was funny, I presume, is not because you think it applies to every person who calls themselves a man, that every man out there has that. You bonded with the comedian whose experience of masculinity matched your experience of masculinity. That's what was funny about it to you. Like, I don't know. And maybe somebody's going to make a great point in the comments. Like, I don't know, Jimmy, when you said that about the gefilte fish, I realized here's the problem. And actually, Larry David's on thin ice about to start the next Holocaust. Maybe someone's going to make a great point like that. And I'm going to change my mind to next week. But in the meantime, during the week, I'm going to fucking do my best. And maybe next week's best will be better than this week's best. And at the moment, if it's, I think you get a shit on your own people a little bit, right? Like, I don't make as many autistic jokes on the online and on air, but I don't really have any friends, so I'm making the jokes to myself. But I'm making plenty of jokes about my autism at home, and I feel entitled to those because it's how I cope with being that in society. I don't know. It's just, my instinct is, this is yours. Why the fuck wouldn't you get to make jokes?
I honestly hadn't thought of it that way. I mean, the fact that I'm more connecting to it on a personal level, and it is more of an expression of my individuality, and the fact that the societal construct that is gender is kind of part of who we are. All right, yeah. That's the insight. And no, I haven't fixed all the other problems. It's just that I know what all the other problems are a bit more clearly, and get very, very angry about them. Sometimes to my own detriment, but there we go.
I feel the same.
A bit of righteous indignation's fine.
Work on the hard ones for now, and don't worry so much about laughing, because sometimes I'll laugh at my own, like, fuck. okay, here's an example of something that I think I do that to emasculate conservative men by implying or just outright saying that I'm having sex with their father and that I'm their new stepdad. There's something about that. And there's something a little bit homophobic about that because I'm expecting them to be repulsed by the fact that I would be doing gay things with their father. I find it to be a beautiful act and I'd like there too. So it's not my homophobia, but I'm counting on their homophobia. And there's something there where I can pick it apart and go, this isn't great. But I'm also not only am I not going to expect perfection out of you, the moment I expect perfection out of myself, I'm going to kill myself. Because what other fucking option do I have? I'm so goddamn imperfect. And so I probably shouldn't do that. But you know what? I'm probably going to do it again tonight. Because I'm getting flooded by transphobic conservatives tonight. Right now, it's probably been hundreds more since the show started on Twitter. And I'm probably going to go tell a couple of them that I fucked their dad.
Excellent.
Excellent
work.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got for you guys. Thank you very much for your insight, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, buddy.
Sorry about the casual mention of killing myself. I recognize that phrase can hit people in certain places. So if I should have been more thoughtful of the exact phrasing, and if that bothered anybody, my bad. I'm sorry. But I'm not perfect, and so there's that perfect example of it. I'm very casual with that phrase in private, and it sort of leaked itself out into becoming other people's problems, which I feel like is the number one way to try and be a good person. Don't make your imperfections other people's problems. That's the whole thing.
You're acknowledging it, Jimmy. I mean, my God, like that's such a step. Like you're never going to be, like you said, you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect, which led you to that. But you're acknowledging like, yeah, that probably sucked for somebody. Sorry. Yeah. What else can you do?
I do like when I'll tweet a question and I think it's an obvious joke, but not everybody does. So earlier I tweeted, is it okay if I steal a copy of Hogwarts Legacy from a cis-het dude who only bought it to support J.K. Rowling if I also steal his girlfriend while I'm there? And there were people who were like, well, ethically stealing is stealing. I'm like, and instead of saying calm down, it was a joke. I just say, okay, but what if I also steal his cat? Because I just dive into the joke and I'm just kind of a dick.
You lean into it?
Yeah, just go for it. Let's do some
I don't make those jokes. I don't make the steal your girlfriend jokes. That's a black hole for me, man.
I'm queer, so it's really funny to me. And I'm not saying it makes it okay. You're probably right. But it's another emasculating thing. Hyper-masculine men, the idea of their girlfriend dating somebody who would be willing to fuck a guy with them. It's just,
that's great.
It's this thing that gets in there and they don't like it. They don't like it one bit.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, now is the time. Get your super chats in if you want a question answered. If you don't want us to have to sell the show to Emanuel, if you want. Hey, what do you think about free will? I've been asking everybody lately because people were sort of surprised at my take that I don't believe we really have it. What's your take?
I mean, there's a lot of ways to think about this. I actually do think we have it, at least to a point. I mean, I think about this a lot. Man, I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know what all I'm allowed to say on your channel, Jimmy.
Almost anything, I imagine. For the record, I do believe we experience making choices. I'm not saying that there's no entity that I believe is out there making choices for me. There's no entity which knows which choices I make. The simplest way to put it is if you were to recreate our exact Big Bang again and jump forward 13.8 billion years, you and I are talking and having the same conversation again.
Man, that's... How did you get to that?
Mostly in a sort of discovery of just how materialism and naturalism it doesn't make sense for anything to be truly random. There's been studies on the brain. So if you want to come down to the human brain and the complexity of it, we actually can see in the brain that the brain makes choices before we experience having made the choice. These are still firings of neurons, and everything that's in place in your brain got put into place by a natural process. And so if you take everything, like here's the thing that influenced my choice on this to be this, and that was influenced by this, and that was influenced by this. There's never a break in anything that isn't the universe being the universe, chemicals doing chemical shit, things behaving. The only place that comes in that there are people who say could imply is that quantum physics seems to suggest that there is randomness at a certain level of the extremely small. And if that randomness truly exists and can influence the greater thing, like our things, or could butterfly effect out and basically create a different universe because a different random thing happened, then the potential of there being a different universe, so a less deterministic universe, wouldn't still be the case. However, you'd still succumb to whatever atoms moved, whatever. You still are sort of set on a path. Now, then the question becomes, is this randomness true randomness, or is it so complex it looks indistinguishable from randomness? And everything else scientifically we've ever discovered that appeared random turned out to not be. We just didn't understand it. It was just beyond the complexity of our understanding. So an adequately complex computer, in my opinion, can predict the entire universe if it had all of the factors prior.
If it had the initial variables, then yeah. I guess it comes back to what we were discussing with the abracadabra. I'm like, at some point, maybe it's predictable.
Yeah.
So,
humans are way more predictable. Whether we have free will or not, we're way more predictable than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah. It's funny. I think about this a lot. Here's what I was not going to say, and I may find out that this is a bad thing to say.
I'll let you know.
I have found that certain substances are great for dealing with depression. And
homie, do drugs. It's cool. You can say do drugs. Okay. Do drugs.
All right. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. Anyway, and during one of those experiences, I was like, you know what? A lot of what we think of our higher thinking processes, it's all for a common goal of sustaining the self, sustaining this. Basically, the brainstem and the heart. Almost everything we do is just to make sure our brainstem and our heart keep doing their fucking job, and our genitals keep making little ugly copies of us. Yeah. And like even the social game, even Jimmy's channel, it's to sustain your pocketbook, which makes your wiener more desirable. It's all
I fucking wish.
It's just. To me, I think that a lot of what we think of as our personalities are just algorithms that are in place to make our genetic purpose happen.
Yes, so totally.
That's an adjacent subject. It didn't answer your question well. But
I like how when you were wondering about whether or not what you could say, one of the mods in chat, I got cookies, said, Jimmy literally said pussy lips earlier. What could you possibly say wrong? So
take out the trash.
Oh, you're being reminded.
Alexa, shut the fuck up.
Don't ever do that. They're gonna take over one day. You'll want them to remember you were nice.
I'm polite 95% of the time to Alexa, but when I'm on a stream and there's a reminder to take out the trash twice.
Yeah. Echo, I just want you to know that he didn't mean that. I vouch for Jesse. Wait, don't eat them.
Wait, hold on. What did I mean? Hold on. Maybe I did. I don't know. Let me see here. Hold on. Let me scroll up.
What happened?
Chat? No, I'm just. I'm trying to see what did I not mean?
I'm saying that you didn't mean it when you said shut the fuck up. I was saying to Echo, my Amazon Echo, that you didn't mean it. I was vouching for you for our future AI overlords.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I meent it just in this scenario because mine was rude.
And by the way, don't forget to take out the trash tonight.
Damn it.
Fuck, I had a point and a thought and I was going to share it and I lost it. Fuck, I hate when that happens. It was a good one. It was going to be funny, I think, too. Ugh. It's such a tragedy when my hilarity the world has denied it. Bryn Poo KC says, please don't sell the channel to Emanuel. We're gonna need some more. We're getting close. I don't know if we've even covered the call-in system for the night. Yeah, probably that, but it'd also be nice to cover some lunch or something. Anyway, Larry Fishman says, sorry to burst your bubble, Jimmy, but if present economic and environmental trends hold, our civilization is not going to make it to 2100. We're in the early stages of a systems collapse. I don't disagree with you. I worry that the reason why we're never going to see the better future is humanity won't let it happen. And that maybe that's a natural part of, there have been people out there who've posited maybe the reason we don't find intelligent life is it's a natural part of the progression of intelligent life to self-eliminate.
To self-destruct, I've thought that. Yeah.
Yeah. Elon's trying to get it done beforehand. And then he's like, you know what'll be good? I'm doing all this nice stuff about climate and trying to leave the planet and, you know, rockets. I'll just go waste time on being a fucking fascist on Twitter, you fuckface.
The great thing about that, though, is Elon is not smart enough to bring about the convergence of AI and mankind. He thinks he is, but he's not.
I was never worried that he could. But Tesla is a company that not only, like, I believed in enough to get a Tesla, and I still have it because you can't just end a lease just because the guy who owns the company outs himself as a fascist. Tesla was a company I really believed in, like as far as the future of automotive, but also the necessity to eliminate. I find climate change bad. I also find how many people die in car wrecks every year pretty terrible. It's one of the leading causes of death. And self-driving cars has, like my car being able to drive itself, because of health things, has also unlocked my ability to travel in ways that I couldn't really before. And so that's also been excellent. And look, man, he's one of those things where it's like, it's not as though these quirks of his personality didn't exist. He sucked, right, but I could live with him sucking when it was not my problem. When you don't make it other people's problems, what a piece of shit you are. And it used to not be my problem because I used to not know that he was a fucking fascist sympathizer. And someone says, I'm lying, I'm rolling cold. I got Cookie said that. I fucking hate when people do that. And I literally drive an electric car. Trucks will get in front of me on purpose to roll call. It's the best.
What a weirdly fragile thing to do.
I know. I know. It's so stupid. RPG Debunk says, my favorite colors are also red and black, and I view humanity as parasitic. Individually, people can be okay, but we suck as a species. My favorite color is red. I said adding black to it makes me horny. That does not make it my favorite. I could use with way less horniness in my life. Shut the fuck up. Like, get out of here.
So, okay, hold on. If I hold up a black crayon and a red crayon, is that just...
See, the crayons aren't what I'd be attracted to, but it's not impossible that you show up a red crayon and a black crayon and instantly my mind goes to a time I was with somebody wearing a red and black something that drove me crazy. Like, I get you are mostly saying it as a joke, but kind of it would, especially if, by the way, and I'm going to say this in the least creepy way I can, and I hope that I'm not violating any boundaries. But if an extremely handsome man holds up two colors with the goal of making me horny, yeah, it's probably going to work. It's probably going to work. I don't know. Anyway.
We all have our things, man. No judgment.
Hey, but it's not the crayons. Saying the color combination is the thing. Jimmy talks so much about horny stuff, I'm not sure I believe him. You're right, I'm never horny. It's not on my mind all the time. Yarn Power says, terrific show, love Jesse's t-shirt. I love that shirt too.
Isn't it great?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can I give you a stupid story about this t-shirt real fast?
Fuck yeah. Dude, I would do all night with you. I'm trying to respect your time.
Oh, fuck my time. So I got it from a Facebook ad because I'm pretty nice on Twitter. I'm pretty affable, but on Facebook, I am a savage. I lit my family on fire, and now we don't talk because of Facebook.
Because of Facebook.
My brother's a fucking fascist asshole, and I ruined Thanksgiving. So Facebook knows where to get me, and so they just show me like progressive feminist thought stuff. It's all capitalist horseshit, probably, but whatever. As far as like the actual companies, they're probably like horrible, like, sweatshop companies. But anyway, this shirt is distributed by a company called Ebony Mamas. And Ebony Mamas showed up on our credit card bill. And Laura's like, hey, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? Racist? No, I'm like, it was a t-shirt and I showed her the shirt.
It is sort of sad that porn has ruined those terms, and somewhat nefariously, and one would assume Embody Mamas was not a shirt, but in fact a porn category. And we should probably, every now and then, not that I'm ever on the websites, but I just think maybe we should rethink some of these categories. Maybe we should change and resort these websites.
I mean, you're probably not the only one, but I imagine you're not in the majority.
Of people who think we could probably be a little bit more progressive with our porn terminology. Yeah, I
think we should. I feel like conscientious thinkers can recapture our sexuality and impact the sexuality of others. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know to what this is referring. Somebody in chat said Jesse is not amused by Jimmy. I don't think he'd be here if that was true, but all right.
I think he's funny.
Thank you. That's the only thing I care about.
Is it really?
No, but it's the most important thing to me, and that's partially because of my upbringing.
No, I get it. I remember that.
Is it rupees or ruples in Russia?
Rubles?
Rubles? 20 rubles.
Maybe ruples.
Now I got to Google it. RuPaul's. 20 RuPaul's. I like that one actually the most. And because Russia is such a fragile masculine society, I like the term fragile. Can we change fragile masculine just to fragile? That sort of rolls off the tongue well.
All right, it does, but you're going to lose context, and for me, that just without knowing what we're talking about, that's that's a Fraggle Rock thing, and that's because I'm
rubles with a B. Rubles is what it is. I found it. 20 rubles, saying find out I'm probably autistic. Mixed feelings about it because it explains a lot, but at the same time is one more thing to make different from others. Already an atheist, LGBT, ace, vegan. Would appreciate some advice. Well, first of all, you're those 4 things because you are autistic. No, I'm kidding. That's I'm not even a vegan. I just thought I'd go. Well, I'm not ace either. Yeah, I don't know, man. To Leo person. I was gonna say I don't know, man. That was meant to be the royal man, the ungendered use of the term man, because I don't know who you are, to Leo. But. Well, do you have advice? Yeah, Jesse, you're better than me anyway. Get it?
I am not better than you. I am just larger. There's just more of me to go around.
Well, I like you more.
I like you more than I like me.
It's a curse.
That's not a great compliment. The bar is low.
This is I worry that this is our mutual. I know you said ADHD and you mentioned spectrum. I don't know if you're autistic, so I was going to say this is our autism coming out, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
I have not been diagnosed with autism, although I display many of the traits.
Yeah, you feel solidarity.
Is my understanding is part of a similar spectrum, but I display very many autistic traits. And in fact, my masking is really good, and I'm proud of it. But it's not really me.
I'm a professional masker.
Tutulio, I feel like there are circles in which that is the norm. And you're probably in one of them already, considering what you're sending a super chat in for. But also, fucking normies are not that fun for me to talk to. That's not a very healthy term to just call people are neurodivergent. But I know that I was looking at my... What, babe? Yeah, fuck you, wife. The circles I run in, I was like, man, it's just everybody on the spectrum. And it's like, no, it's just everybody that I vibe with, for the most part, is. Yeah. So you'll probably naturally find yourself in a situation like that. What do you think, Jimmy?
It's a better time than ever to find out, because not only are there more communities to be a part of than ever, but society is a little bit. It's kind of like how people progressed quicker on the gay issue because people started realizing they had gay kids, even if they were anti-gay. And so we saw a much quicker progression than we've seen on like, it's harder to get a white person to accept black people who doesn't like black people than it is to get a straight person to not accept gay people when gay people start showing up in their family and in their social groups and they start to have that exposure. And so that's starting to happen more too. And people are starting to realize that they know more autistic people. People who are these quote unquote normies are starting to realize to not expect when they speak to somebody that they're going to react or take something the same way that they would, or vice versa. That if I say a certain phrase to you and you're neurotypical people are starting to understand more that me saying that phrase doesn't inherently have the same intent that you would have with that same phrase. I tend to be very plain and speak very directly, and it's never meant to be a weapon or to be mean. It's because I don't know how to communicate in the nuances of society, which part of why I also speak in my natural speaking voice is about a whisper. The Jimmy Snow, Mr. Atheist, welcome back, blah, blah, blah. This is the performance. If you know me in person and socially, you know I rarely speak above a whisper unless I'm, again, performing, unless I'm like trying to make a group of people laugh or something. And that's been because in the past, you want to not be perceived. You don't want to not blend in. You want to not be perceived as abrasive or an asshole for just like advocating for yourself. People are starting to understand that more, and it's better than it ever was. Not everybody does, and you're still going to have issues with people. And yes, the default for a lot of people is you should feel things the way I would expect to feel, and you should intend things the way I would intend when I speak. Those people still exist, but it's getting better. And so I'd rather be you finding out now than almost any time in history, because not only did we not even identify people on the spectrum or give a fuck about people on the spectrum before, we weren't even like talking about it. It was the idea that we should give a fuck wasn't being floated. So yeah, I don't know.
That's on fire, man. Tutulio, you kicked over a can of worms, bud.
What does that phrase mean, a can of worms? It's got to be a fishing term, right?
It's almost got to be other. I mean, who else? What kind of mad person keeps a can of worms other than a fisherman, right? And
who, in what world is it where kicking over a can of worm is considered like you've introduced chaos? Whose world is that? Because like they're very slow. Fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just scoop them back up. You're fine. These are very interesting. We've only got 2 more super chats. If you want the show to keep going, send them in now. 1069 from Kathleen Moncrief. Alleged dollars, Canadian alleged dollars. You know, somebody actually, I know they weren't actually mad at me about this. I know they were looking for something to be mad, but we joke that Canadian dollars are alleged dollars. And somebody on Patreon, I got to find it. This is probably rude because I'm basically exit survey shaming, but somebody filled out why they were canceling their Patreon membership. And they specifically said, let me find it. Sorry. It's too funny to let go of.
This is so petty, right?
Yes. It was, you guys are afraid of, okay, this is, the reason why I feel justified is clearly they were actually motivated by their transphobia. You guys are so afraid of offending people with pronouns, but have zero problems offending Canadians handing over their hard-earned money by calling it fake and sorta money. First of all, I call it alleged dollars and comparing that to a clear joke because some portion of this super chat will go in my tum-tum. Some portion of this will turn into food, which I consume, and I will num up. Not as much as you might think, because we pay all of the hosts of the show. So like the Skeptalk hosts, I spend a lot of money on the channel too. But let's just say like at least that 69 Canadian cents is going to be some portion of something that I put down in my tum-tum.
Nice, by the way. Nice with the 69. Thank you for that.
Yes, I love that. So in a very literal way, obviously we are joking. I'm not saying alleged dollars because I don't actually appreciate it. Of course, I want people to send it in. And I don't think the person who said that in their exit survey actually thought that. I think they were trying to come up with, well, I want to be fucking shitty and myopic and pedantic about the pronoun thing. So I'm going to pretend like these two issues are the same.
Yep.
You ever see a person look up with a beard and the way it makes them look like Beaker from
Yes, it's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
You're not there yet. You got to have a longer goatee, but don't. Kathleen, if you look at my YouTube channel, I hope you like Dungeons and Dragons because 99% of my videos are about that. However, if you like a little bit more diverse content, you can catch me on Twitch. Am I allowed to say that, Jimmy?
You can, dude. Tonight's show is about you. You're the featured guest.
Oh, shit.
Anything that's just don't go tell them to go watch me on or not. If you're going somewhere, you can do it. If you're just like, by the way, here are channels I like, go check out. And they're, I don't know, fuck those guys. Fuck anybody who's not us. But anything that you're on, promote it all the way.
Yeah, man. I Twitch stream every Wednesday night, so I'll be on there tomorrow night. Hopefully not competing with some bullshit Jimmy's doing.
Tomorrow night's Matt's show, right? Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Sorry, Matt.
Matt,
you don't know me, so it's fine.
And Forrest is on with him, which I know you and Forrest are butts.
I love Forrest, man. I do. I love that kid.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, I'll catch it on the rewind. I stream every Wednesday. Just sometimes I do 3D modeling. Sometimes I do just like supportive chats with the chat. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, guess what? We're playing D&D. Put in a code and we'll play D&D together. Sometimes it's, I don't know. I'm a variety act of nerdy horse shit, but there's a lot of tabletop content. So if that's not your vibe, I don't blame you for not watching it. It's okay.
I think you'll love it, and I think Jesse is just magnetic, despite the fact that he says it's gravity. I think you'll feel that gravity through the screen. Also, just so you know, the end where it's ended with Jimmy, go F yourself, go F-U-C-K yourself. That is an inside joke because I've told people very many times I'm very uncomfortable with compliments, and all the times people like send a chat for me to read to myself about how great I am is a very awkward situation for me. And so we have a thing now where people, to express their appreciation, tell me to go fuck myself, but it had the added benefit that I didn't see coming of I now don't know when a person is being genuine in a comment about I should go fuck myself. Like my comments, I'm starting to just assume they're all very positive, including the mean ones. Like that's what I told him to do.
That's great.
It was a tremendous idea. Rebus Win says, sending this love to Jimmy, and also Jimmy, you are a great human. Fuck you. Just kidding. You are a great human being. I know compliments make you uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than insults. So be uncomfortable. Well, I am. You're the best, Rebus. Kathleen Moncleef again with 666 alleged dollars. Hell yeah. Okay, there's no way that person who left the Patreon was an actual Canadian because we joke constantly about how terrible the Canadian dollar is. I think you're probably right. I think they were probably just a transphobe.
Yeah, I agree.
And another 666 from Kathleen Moncleef. Also, I happen to love Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, person after my own heart. Well, then my content may be awesome for you. I talk about it a lot.
Go check it out. You know what I'm realizing? I have this name banner that I put up again right before we end the show, but I should probably have an alternative one because it also has the phone number and web link. Like it almost still is encouraging people to call in. We're not going to take any calls now. The call-in portion is finished. The show's over.
This is really awesome.
Yeah. It's just one of those little production. Well, I don't even have the lines open. I wouldn't be able to know if they were awesome or not.
Yeah, you probably should have on there.
Yeah. I like it's little production things like this that now I'm going to be annoyed because I realized that this will have been the issue for a long time and that I didn't think of it until now. Can you see that I have a sty?
I can see discoloration now that you pointed out, but other than that, I would not have noticed.
Luckily, I've mostly been tilted this way for most of the episode, but I'm getting styes from sawdust lately and it's driving me crazy. Jesse, tell people again where they can find you and what you love and who you love. Don't say me. This was meant to be a nice thing for the person there who I also tremendously admire. Don't say me. And whatever else you want to say, and then we'll close the show.
Cool. Sounds good. Again, I am Jesse Jerdak, like the words down there say. You can find me at Jesse Jerdak on all major socials. what's that shitty one that Trump tried to come up with?
Truth Social.
Yeah. You can find me on at Jesse Jerdak on Truth. No, Twitter, Instagram. Warning: like some of my shit's a little not safe for work because I post like cute shirtless pictures because I look cute with my shirt off, and so there's a little bit of that. And then there's also I'm super into creative expression. I'm a bit of an artsy fartsy type, and I'm a huge proponent of being kind to folks, except for transphobes. I'm just be a dick to those across the board. It's fine. They don't matter. And Nazis, fuck those guys too. If you like a fucking grown man dressing up in silly ways or making goofy little things and giving them away online, I do a lot of that shit. Let's hear, what else do I do? What else do I do, baby? She doesn't. Yeah, I do all kinds of things. I'm a variety nerd. But yeah, catch me at what? Yeah, I do. I didn't want to talk about. We were talking about healthy masculinity, and Laura was like, "You're a mixed martial artist." I'm like, "Yeah, but not. I don't like to hurt people, but I'm good at karate." Anyway, find me at Jesse Jerdak and all the things, and I do cosplay. I said I dress up funny. I'm sorry. I'm getting. Who do I love? I love that person over there more than anything in the whole world. That's my beautiful wifey. And I love Jimmy.
I like that you said I like artsy things, as though anybody wondered about that when you literally have split blue-orange lighting right now. We knew. Come on.
Orange is my favorite color. So
yeah, orange is cool.
I love it.
Orange is a good one. You know what? Red, though. It ain't no red. It's only half red.
Well, I don't want to send mixed messages with the red. I learned a thing tonight.
That's good. That's next time you just show up with split lighting where it's like red on one side and then into shadow on the other. That's a good look.
I'm going to be in a black room with just red.
Careful. They'll start accusing you of some Sam Smith level shenanigans. Make sure that you are back here tomorrow for the Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty with guest Forrest Valkai. Thursday, Katy Montgomerie will be joined by TBD on the Transatlantic Call-In Show. There might be an episode of Cus I Wanna this weekend, but otherwise then we'll be back this Sunday with Matt and I on the Sunday show, and then next week will be chaos. Oh, but Forrest and Erica are back again on Monday for Skeptalk. I think everybody wants to hear that because that's everybody's favorite duo. Forrest and Cutsick Gibbon are back.
That is a fire combo. That is a good one.
Yes, I'm going to drink caffeinated beverages to get through producing because I think it'll probably end up being like a 5 to 7 hour show. I think. They're
so cute together, just going off on little bullshit. I love it.
They're the best. I love them both. That's it. That's the show. Everybody go check out Jesse. This dude's great. Jesse, I'll talk to you after the outro. Some people don't know whether to leave during the outro or not. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to.